This last part of the Christmas story has an image that really spoke to me this time around this year. And it's where, after all these wonderful things have happened, these amazing things have happened, things that were almost too impossible to take in, it says that Mary treasured these things in her heart and pondered them. Her heart was the place where she made sense of all of the amazing things and all the difficult things that were happening around her. This year, there's been a particular conversation, I think, about the meaning of Christmas that has played out in newspapers and on television and in the news. I was reading an essay by Nicholas Kristof in the New York Times last week in an article called "What Would Surprise Jesus About Christmas 2025?" And this is what the person he was interviewing, who was a professor of New Testament professor, Bart Ehrman, said. Well, the Gospels are stories intended to convey important messages. I find the message of Christmas to be very moving. It's about God bringing salvation into a needy world through an impoverished child. This is a child who will grow up and give life to others. I don't think Jesus would recognize Christianity today. The idea that he was a pre-existent divine being who came into the world as a newborn is not found in any of his own teachings in our earliest Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And I think he'd be flabbergasted to hear it, this New Testament scholar says. He says, I don't think this is historical, but I believe stories can be true, meaningful, and powerful, even if they didn't actually happen. Many of us read great novels that help guide our thoughts about how we want to live. The Christmas story is like that, with power to shape how we think and behave toward others. This year we have seen unprecedented cruelty playing itself out, even in images that are depicted in the Christmas story. There have been nativity displays all around the country that have made people think about the parallels between what's happening to this migrant couple and how they're being treated in the legal system and how they are without home and without protection. And yet God shows up for them. Perhaps the most controversial one was at St. Susanna's Church in Dedham, Massachusetts, a church I used to drive by every time I went to work when I lived in West Roxbury and pastored a church in Needham, Massachusetts. And they always had a sort of a controversial nativity display. And this year, there was one in which the baby Jesus was not in the manger, but there was just a sign that said, "Ice was here." And then there was another sign that said, "But don't worry, the Holy Family has found sanctuary in our church and is safe there. But if you see ice, call this number." And it's a number that is helping immigrants and migrants. It was a provocative, shocking way to depict the Christmas story. And then other places around the country have picked up various versions of it. But what struck me was the Archbishop in Boston instructing the church to remove it because it was too political, and saying that when you come to church, you shouldn't expect something that's political. But the priest said, and he didn't remove it, we'll see what happens to him after Christmas, but he said, I can't remove it. It's just a true story. This story is unfolding around us everywhere. And though people have been disputing this, is it a political story? Is it about immigrants and refugees? All he said was, look at the story and let your heart read it as well as your mind. I read a sermon this week from a Lutheran pastor in Bethlehem who is also Palestinian. And he calls upon us who are looking at this story to believe that it isn't just about what happened then, but what is happening still in the very same place, in Bethlehem, and to Palestinians in Gaza, the West Bank, in Israel. He says there's a kind of disconnect when people think that, or when Christians forget that Bethlehem is real. They disconnect from their spiritual roots, and when they forget that Bethlehem is real, they also forget that the story of Christmas is real. So what does Christmas look like when told from the perspectives of the people who still live where it all began, the Palestinian Christians? What meaning does it hold for a tiny community that has preserved its faith for 2 millennia? At its heart, Christmas is the story of the solidarity of God. And this Lutheran Palestinian pastor in Bethlehem urges us to look at the ways in which the trauma, the tragedy, the injustice that was present in the first Bethlehem story is still unfolding even now. Now, I know that we come to church on Christmas Eve not necessarily to be reminded about what's happening in the world, but I think if we're going to tell this story and listen to this beautiful music, we have to be willing to look at how it's still unfolding, the difficult things about it, and also the beautiful things about it. Because what still happens in the midst of that big mess in the first century is also still happening now. God breaks into the chaos and difficulty of our circumstance and finds a way to bring us hope. We see a baby, we see a family, we see struggle, and we see solidarity all in this. And that can give us hope for the present moment. It gives us courage to read this through the lens of the heart of Mary, who, when she could have been overwhelmed by all that was taking place, allowed herself for a moment to feel it, And in that, she experienced another kind of birth, a birth of hope. This is my third year of singing with the choir, and I've learned that we have some familiar pieces that we repeat and some new things. And I hope you felt the beauty of both tonight. I don't know about you, but when the choir sings, I'm feeling Christmas. And one of the anthems that we sang this year, and we'd sung it 2 years previously also, was Sure on This Shining Night. It's by the composer Morton Lauritsen, and the text is by the American poet James Agee. This is the text of that poem, and we sang it a few weeks ago in church, and we were practicing it beforehand. But here's the text. Sure on this shining night of stars made shadows round, kindness must watch for me this side the ground. The late year lies down the north. All is healed, all is health. High summer holds the earth, hearts all whole. Sure on this shining night, I weep for wonder, wandering far alone of shadows on the stars. And it's about the glory and the awe of this night, this holy night. Actually, the text is about the summer solstice, but we sing it this time of year because there's another solstice. But the same thing is true. There is an awe and a wonder to the capacity for hope to be born in the midst of all that's going on then and still. And we can feel it, even when we can't see it, when we look and perceive with our heart. Here's what happened to me rehearsing this anthem that we had. This is the third year round. You'd think I'd know it. You'd think I wouldn't need to look at the music. In some ways, I was a little lazy about it. I was like, yeah, I know this. This year I had gone through difficult and unexpected health challenges, including treatment for cancer. And I had just recently gotten good news about that from the doctors who said, well, this is the best possible outcome. We like what's happening here. This is good. I heard that news with my head. But a few weeks later, 2 weeks ago, when we were in the choir rehearsal and we were singing, Sure, on this shining night, all is healed, all is health, hearts all whole. I stopped listening only with my mind, and I had an opening in my heart to feel this miracle that is happening all around us if we're open to it. And here's how I knew it. We're singing the anthem. I'm trying to steal my notes off Mike and Keith, as I always do. And at the end, I was feeling something. All is health, all is healed, hearts all whole. And I didn't think I was crying, but I realized my face was wet. I hadn't wept, I hadn't ugly cried, but something happened. I felt it in my heart, the news that I had heard with my mind 2 weeks before. All is health, all is healed, hearts are whole. It doesn't always happen immediately. Sometimes it takes time to unfold. The message of Christmas is that there is relentless health, healing, and hope available to us if we can allow ourselves, as Mary did, to listen and experience through our hearts. So tonight I invite you, listen to the music, soak it up, take in the candlelight, and let how you feel guide you in receiving the mysteries available to us so that we can make hope real when we leave this place. Sure, on this shining night, all is healed, all is health, hearts are whole.